Good evening, everyone. We are here to discuss a very important issue which we all face as students, and the biggest challenge in writing or clearing your exam is your mains answer writing. Mains because your maximum marks are devoted to this section, uh, apart from your prelims, which is just a qualifying paper, and your interview, which is of again the number comparable to your mains is much less. So your major focus in your preparation is your mains examination, right? Optional plays a very important role. Since the time there is just one option and not two, you have to give your sole attention to this option. So it is very important that you write these answers, you practice these answers in such a way that you are able to score above 280, 300. That is the target we are taking from here. So this class is for all the people who are either writing mains this year or are preparing for next year or any other further attempts, because we are actually here learning the skill of answer writing. Why do I say skill? Because skill is something which can be acquired over the period of time, and if you start today itself, I'm sure by the time you write your mains, you will be perfect with the skill. So that's why mains answer writing skills. And here, from here today, we will start discussing the frameworks for previous year questions. I cannot reiterate the relevance of previous year questions. It is so essential that it is like, I often use this example that it is like a Google map. It will help you reach to your final destination. So don't leave out previous year questions. And this would be as a part of a series where we'll continue discussing the previous year questions and their framework. Basically, the idea is not to discuss the content, but discuss the framework for these previous year papers, right? The presentation or your class is focusing on four basic aspects. One is the certain prerequisites before you start writing your mains or you get a chance to write your mains. 6 basic rules that you have to keep in mind irrespective of anything. If you're writing in one answer, 10 marker or a 20 marker, may it be anything. You have to just keep in mind these 6 basic rules. Then we'll discuss the structure of the answer, how you have to take forward your answer, present your answer, because all of you have the same content. There is no change in content. You are referring to the same Harlem Bose book. You are referring to same NCRT. You are referring to same Ritzer. You all are referring to the same material. Just imagine the strength of sociology optional students, and you all are referring to the same material. Now, keep it in mind that for GS also, there is no change in your material, your content. So what is the difference? Why one student gets more marks vis-a-vis the other student? Because there's no change in content. Out of just imagine 1 lakh students, just presume 1 lakh students, and within that 1 lakh student, at least minimum, I'm saying 50,000 are serious, and with these 50,000, 40,000 of you have the same content, same source of books. Your difference is your presentation, how you will present your answer. This is the key. Your examiner doesn't know your content. Examiner doesn't know what you have studied, what you have not studied, what you have missed, what you have done perfectly. How will you present your answer to the examiner is going to determine your marks in this paper. And this is for your both GS and your sociology option, and you must never leave behind your essay. Prelims, it's objective type. Every one of you is marking, there's nothing called as presentation in prelims. Interviewers, you present your character, you present your personality. It is your mains that you have to present, you have to write the answers, and therefore answer writing skills. And that is what we are going to learn here. How you can structure your answer better, and what are the basic rules that you have to keep in mind before you attempt any answer, or I would say before you sit for writing any answer, any test series, any mains. You must have these basic principles, basic rules in your mind. So let's come to the certain prerequisites, and this is something I have told again and again in the classes in my earlier lectures, that complete your syllabus. Don't sit half-heartedly with just the syllabus reading of once or twice of a book. Don't sit with that. Make your notes. Notes making, I would attempt to take a separate lecture on how to make your notes. Here I'm talking about two set of detailed notes. Two set of notes. One is your detailed and one is your short revision notes. Detailed notes should have the way you're going to present your answers. These notes should be very clear, crisp. You should know the length, how much you have to write, and they have to be structured. They have to be structured in a way. We will just discuss how we structure our answers, but these have to be structured in a way that you don't write everything under the sun which is available. You choose a topic, you choose these subheadings. Within these subheadings, you write points and then you write your notes. Don't randomly just cut, copy, paste from your books. That is futile. That exercise is not at all relevant. Then comes the short revision notes. You get very limited time to revise. Between your GS and your optional paper, now they have started giving a week's time, but earlier they used to be just 2 days. Given that 1 week also, we are assuming that you cannot read the entire syllabus word to word or page to page. So therefore, it is important to make your short revision notes. Now, once this task is complete, short revision notes and detailed notes, I will try and make another lecture on that. But this is something you must understand are key essential points. Some things which are crucial, certain prerequisites, you have to complete them first. Then revise your syllabus at least 5 to 6 times. This is bare minimum. What we do is we tend to just make our notes, read it once and keep it aside. Before the examination, we just give it a normal reading. Every time you read your notes, you will read and see that you have written something new. Something new will click, some new idea, some new perspective. You will understand, oh, I had missed this point before reading it. Now I'm reading it again. It makes a sense. Even for your books, don't start making notes just by one reading of the book, but multiple, at least 2 or 3 times reading, that you get to know the structure. You get to know that what has to be written and what not has to be written. So it is very important that you revise 5 to 6 times. Now, most important thing, and that's why I have started this as a part of a series, that please solve previous year questions. Don't even sit for a test series if you haven't solved previous year questions. You would realize that questions get repeated in UPSC. They have the common themes. They have the common, perspective to ask certain questions. They will keep on repeating this. Pick up last 20 years paper and practice them. Practice them at your home. You don't have to get, any coaching for that. For that, you just have to practice at your home. Then you finally join the test series. So this is a certain prerequisite before you understand that how a test series has to be written, how to score when in a test series, and your ultimate aim is not test series. Your ultimate aim is your mains. So what you will do is you will attempt every test as if this is your final mains. Now, let me make this thing as a point of caution, as something very important, which you all, and even sometimes we all, even I have made that mistake, is that practicing answers every day. This, to be very honest, I just did for 1 week and I realized the flaws of it. Every day you sit for answer writing, you practice 1 or 2 questions, you get so exhilarated, oh, I've practiced 1 or 2 questions, you take half an hour break, you sit with all the material around you, your coffee, your milk, your water bottle, everything. You are just wasting your time. Have you ever noticed when you're writing a 3 hours paper, your first 10 questions are excellent. It is your second and the third hour which is actually challenging, which actually stresses your mind and you're not able to write answers. You are under stress. You don't know which point to write first, which point to write later. Practicing answers every day just trains you for this first hour. But practicing it once a week for 3 hours is training you for this second and third hour. And that is essential. Your mind should be trained for 3 hours. And that I say for prelims also, that your mind should be trained for 2 hours. There's no point practicing 10 questions every day. You have to train your mind for slogging. You have to train your mind for brainstorming for 2 hours. Similarly, for mains answer writing, you have to strain your mind. You have to brainstorm your mind for 3 hours. So from today, don't do everyday answer writing. That is a very personal suggestion, and I would request you to adopt this, because your final exam is of 3 hours. Train yourself for this. Notes making you can do every day. Every day pick up a topic, make notes. ये आपकी writing practice है. You are making notes. This is your writing practice. But do have a habit of writing 3 hours paper. Let's talk about the 6 basic rules which are essential. Now, last time I remember I told you that how to score 300 plus, and I told you just write sociological perspectives. But I realized that we often fail to understand what is sociological perspective, and this is the question which is repeatedly asked. Especially your short notes. Especially sometimes we have to write an answer which is quite GS. Like for example, last year you had labor codes. Sociological terms, concepts, perspectives. I'm not asking you to do a deeper analysis of any heavy book or anything, but just go back today and take out your NCERT class 11th. Take out this textbook and you will see this is in your chapter. And this is part of your syllabus. This is the first basic textbook that you need to read, because every time you write an answer, you have to, let's keep this a point. Every time you write an answer or you're writing your notes, reflect on it, that whether you have used this class 11th NCERT. Class 11th NCERT has your terms, concepts and perspectives. What are sociological perspectives? Sociological perspectives are understood on 2 lines. One is how there are certain social groups. What are social groups? A group of people in the market, do they constitute a social group? The aggregate of people, just a group of people standing in the market? No. Social group has certain characteristics. For example, your primary groups, your family. For example, your secondary groups, your reference groups. These are social groups. Then comes social structure. Structure determines your process of interaction. For example, caste, class, gender. These are social structures. Then social processes. For example, there is a question which comes like patriarchy and sexual division of labor. Patriarchy, you understand, is a system of social structure and processes. Sexual division of labor is also a system of social structure and processes. But how do you determine their relationship? How do you determine an answer on that? You have to establish the relationship between them. Now, that relationship can be a circular relationship, reinforcing one another. That can be in competition to one another. That can be in cooperation to one another. So social processes are most commonly understood as either competing factors or your cooperative factors. Then comes social institutions. What are social institutions? Family, religion, politics, marriage, kinship. These are your social institutions. So whenever there is a question, for example, let's take tribal subplan. You have to see that whether that tribal subplan has impacted the social group, that is tribes. Whether it has impacted their social structure, family, marriage, or caste, class. Whether that tribal subplan has led to only influencing the upper caste within the tribes, or it has influenced all the tribal groups irrespective of the caste. or class, whether it is just the upper class who has taken the benefits of this tribal subplan, or whether it is the lower class who has taken the benefits. What social processes did it instigate? Whether it led to competition in the tribal people? Did the tribal subplan actually make any difference to their market or economy? And then you talk about the social institutions. So this is how you write a sociological answer. This is about the terms and concepts. Where you'll get it? Now, I'm not saying that, this is something I've acquired over the period of time. Trust me, your NCERT and your IGNOU books, apart from your Harlem Boss, which you read, are the key textual source. Stick to them, stick to their language, stick to their terminologies, and you will succeed in this exam. Trust me, I have secured 283. I have secured 301. I have used this strategy. And there is no other way to suggest that understanding sociology, your first textbook, which you have to read again and again, I would suggest you read every month. It would help you. What are perspectives? For example, let me give you an example here that this I wanted to take up as a separate framework also, but I'll just introduce you here. There was a question in 2018 about transgenders, about the entitlement rights of the transgenders. I wrote that answer on the basis of Marxian perspective, Weberian perspective, and Durkheim perspective. Then feminist perspective. Once you read any basic textbook on sociology, may it be Harlem Boss, may it be Anthony Giddens, may it be your IGNOU, may it be your NCERT, you will see that they will always start their book with these perspectives, explaining different perspectives to you. Positivist, non-positivist, interactionist, your phenomenologist, ethnomethodologist, feminist, critical school, postmodern school. So whenever there is a question, either you can adopt this structure of answering your question, or you can adopt this structure that you write different perspectives. Marxian, Weberian, Durkheim, feminist, any perspective that you like. Critical school, postmodern school, you can choose. I will discuss the transgender question in the next class, which we'll take as a part 2 of the series. But from now, whenever you read anything, try to reflect on these perspectives. Clear? Understand the broader context. Now, we are in a habit of just reading the question from sociological perspective. Whether this is part of sociology syllabus or not. And in the end, we conclude that, the question paper was most of the question paper was out of syllabus. No. Sociology is a part of your everyday life. The moment you're born, you're part of sociology. So your current affairs, which is of everyday life, which changes every year, your questions are framed around those current affairs. Labor codes is something which the government has been trying to implement since 2-3 years. And now finally it is in existence. Obviously there'll be a question on it. Agriculture crisis is something which is going on for past 2 years at a rampant scale. Since last year there's a farmer protest going on which has led to blockage of highways. Why wouldn't there be a question on farmer protest? Or why wouldn't there be a question on agricultural reforms? So you need to understand that whatever you read in the current affairs, you are able to interlink it with sociology. Now, I've just missed here one point. Let me just come back to the first point, that you have to understand the syllabus. When you're understanding the terms and concepts, try to interlink paper 1 and paper 2. They are not in isolation. They both don't work in isolation. They are not two distinct entities. They both go hand in hand. So whatever you learn for paper 1, try to incorporate that in paper 2, and whatever you learn for paper 2, try to incorporate that in paper 1. Right? So this is 2 points, how you have to understand what is the basic rule to understand your question paper, your notes, how to approach them. Most important point, how would you choose your options? This is a very difficult task, and you don't get much time to evaluate that in the examination. So what you have to do is, you have to answer right. You have to practice answer writing before and see how you're choosing your questions. For example, I would always recommend go for questions in which you know both 20 marker, 20 marker. Never go for a typology where you know 20 marker and 10 marker. Don't leave out the 20 marker. That is the key essential point. Now, for example, in your practice, answer writing practice, or when you are doing your test series, you start with the questions that you know before, and then you go to your other questions. You start with your strength. But all of a sudden, when you sit for the final exam, you change your strategy. You say, no, 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 now I'll go one by one. That is not how you have trained your mind. Your mind is trained that where you start with your strength and then you go towards the point which you don't know or which is less known to you. So follow the same pattern, what you're practicing in answer writing. If you're here starting from question number 1, in your exam also start from question number 1. Right? Then, simple language. Now this is something, trust me, this examination is not about academics. It is not about hi-fi language. It is not about implicating the languages written in Anthony Giddens, Harlan Bose, or Ritzer. It is about simple language. Your language should be clear. If you have to write difficult, you write difficult. You don't have to look for another word for it. Don't go for terminologies which are not required. Dictionary, you're not there to present a dictionary. You're there to present a simple answer. Simple answer, if you need a guidance on that, keep reading your NCERT, keep reading your IGNOU. Very simple language. If you give it to a class 12 student, he would understand. Write your answers in such a way, apart from the terminologies that you're writing, that even a 12th class person can understand. Trust me, this is a key. For example, you use very difficult terms and terminologies and difficult words, and you yourself, when you read it, you're not able to understand, you're not able to make sense of it. It's better to write simple language and try to bring a flow in your answer. When you say that, your answer is not coherent, we usually write in the test series that your answer is not coherent when we evaluate the test series. That means that you have just put in different ideas, you have just put in different arguments, but you have not made a flow of it. You have not articulated it logically or intelligibly. What you need to do is you have to bring a flow to your answer. If you're first talking about social consequences and you're talking about poverty, then you finish this section and then go to the next section, that if it is impacting women or not. I'm just taking an example here. What you do is you just keep on adding thinkers, and you fail to address that there is a flow to an argument. First you will write about women, then you will write about poverty, then you will write about child, then you will again write about poverty. Don't do that. Bring a flow, bring a pattern, bring your arguments in such a way that they are logically related to one another. Your points will not be seen in isolation, but in a flow. So keep that in mind. Simple language and a flow to your answers. Then work on your writing. Now this is something I ask students, that do you know that there is a document, if you open the UPSC website, certain mistakes that students shouldn't do. Maybe the words are different, I had read it long back, but certain mistakes that students should avoid, should not do. Just go back and see. And there it is clearly written that whatever you write should be legible and clear. You're practicing your answers or you're practicing your notes in lines copy. All of a sudden you have to write an answer in A4 size sheet with no lines. Your writing would go this way, intersecting, all that. I'm not saying that you have to give a typewriter writing something which is out of the computer like this. It is not possible. But at least it should be clear. At least make an attempt that you are writing in straight line. You're writing 5 to 6 words in a line only. Don't crumble them up. So make sure that your writing is very legible, clear, and most important, please learn these spellings. It is a big no that you write wrong spellings. of especially thinkers and their concepts. Imagine you are writing Durkheim, but you are not writing Durkheim spellings. You're writing Hochschild, Ali Hochschild, you're not writing the correct spellings. And then you are underlining. That's a mistake. Learn the spellings. If you don't know the spellings, I would suggest leave out writing the thinker's name. Leave out writing something. But don't write wrong. And a little bit of grammatical errors you should avoid. You should not make them. At least this you will develop by practicing everyday answers, that you don't make grammatical errors. And the last point about the basic rule that you have to follow is time management. You have to do 20 marker questions and 10 marker. Start practicing weekly, that 20 markers that you complete in 12 to 13 minutes and 10 markers you complete in 6 to 7 minutes. Completing the paper is essential. आप एक क्वेश्चन 20 मार्कर को 20 minutes दे दोगे, you are losing out on a 10 marker. Completing the paper is a key to getting good marks, right? So these are your 6 basic rules. Now let's talk about the structure of answer. How you have to present your answer. Content सबका same है, but how will you make your answer different from others? That would be your unique answer. So for that, you need to follow a structure. The first is your introduction. Now, introduction, conclusion, they are inevitable. Point 1 and point 7. Don't even give it a second thought. Whether you're writing 2 lines, 3 lines, that is enough. But introduce your answer and conclude your answer. Don't leave it open-ended. It is not at all advisable. For example, if you're doing a conversation and without concluding the conversation, you walk away. It comes out to be very rude, right? It comes out to be very irresponsible. Similarly, when you're writing an answer and you don't give a conclusion, you are being rude. You're being irresponsible. So, introduction, obviously you can't just jump to writing the answer. Introduction hota hai from where? From your keywords. What has been asked? Now, you don't have to go for every time a fancy introduction, started with a quote or anything. These are not required. Simple. Either learn some definitions or write a broader context of the question. I will give you 2 sets of answer on this when we'll discuss the framework. Definition, where to learn from? Simple definitions you can learn from NCERT's IGNOU. There's no harm in it. But learn after every chapter, and that is for your Harlem Bose, Anthony Giddens. After every chapter that you turn, you will see there is a glossary. Whatever terms which are at least used in your syllabus, directly referred to in your syllabus, at least learn those definitions. Family, marriage, kinship, religion, politics, social fact, Verstehen, capitalism. Learn these definitions. These are important to introduce your answer. Or sometimes you don't know the definition, then introduction to nahi chhodna hai. Make a broader context. आप broader context में बता दो कि ये question किसके बारे में पूछा गया है. Summarize कर दो बिल्कुल. जो question पूछा गया है उसी को ही summarize कर दो. So, in the introduction, you are going to talk about what is the content of the question, and that would start either by a definition or setting a broader context. Second point, there is no one way of writing the answer, no paragraphs, no points. कोई बोलता है कि सिर्फ points नहीं देखना चाहिए, sociology का answer है, humanities है, you shouldn't write in points. Somebody says that, paragraphs, people don't have time to read paragraphs. You have to make a flow to it. You have to bring a flow to your answer. A big no is too long paragraphs. वो बिल्कुल भी नहीं करना. Essay maybe when you write, let me tell you just one extra thing, that in essay also when you write, if you are giving a subheading, don't end your paragraph with the next subheading. Write in small paragraphs so that the examiner knows that you have written different perspectives. You have written different points. So, essay you cannot use points, right? So, write small paragraphs. Here also, small paragraphs, no big paragraphs. Big paragraphs are a big no. You cannot understand. The common thing which I had adopted almost in all my answers and questions was, which you can adopt, is first write the introduction, give a transitioning line, write the points, give another transitioning line. Now this is for 20 marker. Give a transitioning paragraph or a context, then you write your points and then you conclude. For a 10 marker, you will write the introduction, give the transitioning line, write your points, and then you can just simply conclude. So please keep in mind, you have to bring a structure to your answer, right? Another important thing, underline keywords and thinkers. Now this practice you have to start doing in your notes itself. This is also you have to start doing. Now the structure of answers would largely depend upon how you have made your notes. So when you're making your notes also, always start with the definition. What you are writing about. And then when you're writing about any keyword or thinker, start underlining your notes. Usse kya hoga, when you're writing your answers, your final exam, you will keep on underlining simultaneously. There is no time in the mains examination to go back. Acha, main pehle likh leti hu, then I'll go back and underline. There's no time. साथ के साथ, as you're preparing your notes also, underline the keywords. अब ये, one more thing keep in mind. Some students, they have a tendency of underlining the whole sentence. That is also wrong. Only the keywords. Keep it in mind, only the keywords and thinkers. For example, you're writing a report's name. You know, United Nations report on women. Or you're writing a World Economic Forum report. उसी को बस underline करना. पूरा sentence नहीं करना. So please keep that in mind. Word limit. Now this is one of the major challenge that often students face, is how much to write. Now they have given you word limit. For 10 marker it is 150 and for 20 marker it is 250. And they have given space also. Do one thing, make your notes in that manner. You will get a specimen in your UPSC website also, and if not, you just buy A4 size bundle and start making margins on both sides. What will happen is, when you will make margins, here you will write the important things. So at the time of revision, it becomes easier. And you will know that, okay, for a topic you have written 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages. Now you will do a full stop. भैया exam में तो आपको maximum 3.5 pages लिखने हैं. So you will also stop in terms of making your content. And in exam also you will stop. So 150 words, here you can do a plus minus of 20 words, and for 250 words you can do a plus minus of 50 words. But don't start counting your words in the examination. Please use your time judiciously. They will also not count. That's why I'm saying plus minus of 20 or plus minus of 30 लगा लो. Don't go over the board. आपके पास जितना space उन्होंने दिया उतने में ही लिखना है. So why not start practicing in your notes itself that you write that much content? So in this way, you will not even run after more content. You will limit yourself. Then, often there is a tendency among students to write what they know and not write what is the demand of the question. For example, if they are asking you the difference between a comparison between Karl Marx and Weber's capitalism, what you will do is, often first students write the entire theory of Karl Marx, then they'll write entire theory of Weber. Is that the demand of the question? Demand is comparison. How will you compare? I'm just giving you a framework for comparison, but here I just want to flag a point that when there is a question on comparison, or when there is a question on, two things. Demand of the question means that tell them what is being required, not what you know. Compare the two theories in terms of what were the views on society, which perspective did they adopt, what is the reason for capitalism. For him it is division of labor, for Weber it is your religion. What is the consequences? Now, consequences, both of them have problem. Then what is the solution according to them? And then you come out of the table and write the final point. There are 2 ways of writing comparative questions. I'll come back to that point. But have certain framework. Address the demand of the question. Now sometimes I just told you, Karl Marx theory likh diya, Weber theory likh diya, and you say that you have written the answer. But that is not the demand of the question. Demand of the question is you have to compare how the two thinkers were different in each aspect. Right? Then quoting thinkers. Now this is something I've already told you in how to score 300 plus marks, which I had taken earlier. Your intelligence is shown how you present your answer, not just being a mouthpiece of any thinker or thinkers in your context. Don't throw in thinkers. Don't just keep on writing, okay, this thinker has said this thinker has said this thinker. Bring a flow, articulate your answers. Examiner must know that you have addressed the demand of the question. Only write when it is required. It is okay if you know 10 thinkers, but according to the demand of the question, you can write only 2. Write only 2. You're not going to get extra marks for writing 8 more. You will get marks if you're writing 2. But if you're writing 10, you're actually challenging examiner's intelligence. Show him or her subtly that you know the content. Don't throw in your knowledge. Don't be a mouthpiece of any thinker, but intelligibly articulate your answer. Then substantiate it through your facts, figures, reports. Let me make this thing very clear that if any argument you're making, if you are saying, for example, women are underpaid in economy. Now, this is just a statement. This is just a common sense knowledge. But if you add a report here, this becomes an argument. They don't want your common sense knowledge. They want intelligible arguments. So please, whatever you write, substantiate through facts, figures, reports. Case studies. Often students have a tendency to go towards journals, articles, Yojana, Kurukshetra, all the random things. Until and unless you are able to reproduce it in the examination, you are wasting your time. Write 2 to 3 lines of a case study in your notes. If you're writing them or including them in your notes by not just, tearing it apart and sticking it on a piece of paper, not by that, but by summarizing it into 2 to 3 lines. What is the broader context? What was the result? And what impact it has? That is how you use your case studies. Clear? Now, conclusions. This is something I often tell that it was very interesting to watch the TVF series also, Aspirants. The problem with that guy who wanted to clear UPSC was he had a very negative mindset. Always criticizing, complaining, okay, this is wrong. And that is the advice most of the teachers and their friends also gave him. You have to give balanced conclusions. You're going to work with the society, you're going to work with the administration. How can you always be complaining and criticizing? So give balanced conclusion. There is a problem, recognize the problem, address the problem, give them the solution. Have a solution-based approach. Have a positive approach. ये नहीं कि trafficking है, उसके अंदर भी आप positive डालोगे. उसमें you have to give a balanced approach that we have constitutional provision. There have been a major change. There has been a shift. But society needs to work as a collective unit. All the stakeholders have to work in as a collective unit. So balanced conclusions. Right. So this is the broader structure of your answer. In your body, you have to keep these things in your mind. And an introduction and a conclusion is essential. Now let us discuss few frameworks. Here I have chosen 3 frameworks. One, questions based on comparative distinction or differentiation. Now these previous year questions, we are sticking to previous year questions because they get repeated. Their frameworks get repeated. Their idea get repeated. So you need to understand these themes and perspectives are something which are repeated again and again. So once you learn the framework of one, you'll be able to solve the rest of it. So I have classified it into certain themes. Here today I am discussing 3. I have identified 5 more, which we'll do in the next lecture. It would be a part of the series. If you have any question, if you have any doubt, if you want something to be included, you can write it in the comment section below, right? So I'll take a note of it and I'll add it. Let's talk about the first one. Now, comparative distinction or differentiation based questions. In 2018, there was a question on qualitative and quantitative techniques of data collection. Often we have a tendency to just start writing. Either you will make this table, and most of the students, trust me, do not make this portion, and that's why I have specifically included this as an example. You will just start writing directly without giving a base. So for a 20 marker, first you'll define both the terms, qualitative and quantitative. What is the basis of it? Why are they important for research? Just in 3 to 4 lines you will elaborate on it. Then a distinction based question that I just told you earlier, when you're doing a distinction between Karl Marx and Weber, that first you tell about their views of society, then you talk about their perspective, which approach they have adopted, then you talk about the reasons for emergence, then you talk about consequences, right? This is the way I told you how to write a differentiation question. Similarly, in quantitative qualitative technique, you'll first see what is their assumption. What is the nature of reality they are looking at? Quantitative methods or techniques look at reality as fixed and objective, and qualitative look at it as constructive and subjective. Now, here I'm not here to teach you the content, but to give you an idea. This is how you will go about writing the answer. First to define, then make this table, talk. Now it is a 20 marker. Here I've missed one point, write example also. Example of quantitative technique, example of qualitative. Now that this completes your 10 marker, and then you conclude that these days we used multiple methods or techniques. This is known as triangulation. Given the complexities of each technique, we use multiple techniques to reach at your conclusion or arrive at your conclusion, and that is known as triangulation. There is importance of both quantitative and qualitative methods. That is how you conclude. But if it is a 20 marker, then you have to write advantages and disadvantages as well. Clear? So let's come to the next set of question. One more thing in mind, definition has to come as a separate first paragraph. This has to be 3 to 4 lines, and conclusion has to come out. You come out of the table and you write conclusion. If you're writing advantages and disadvantages, then you can make another table where you talk about advantages, and then you make another table where you talk about disadvantages. Now that has to be also in a very synchronized manner. Now you cannot say quantitative advantages is both, it is valid and reliable, and qualitative advantages also it is reliable and valid. This we do it in detail. Please be very careful. These are very objective type questions. You don't have to do much analysis of it, and these are very scoring. So be clear with your concepts. Have that conceptual clarity before you sit, and that's why I say the certain prerequisites are that you complete your syllabus, make your notes, you revise them, practice previous year papers, and then join the test series and then sit for the final units. It is not an easy task. It will take time. So be patient with it. Make everyday targets and you will reach it. Right? Statement-based questions. Now this is very interesting. Our tendency is to just see the first word which is written or making sense to us, which we are able to understand, and we start writing the answer based on that. This statement by C.W. Mills was asked in 2018 as a 20 marker. Statement-based questions means that you have to explain them. You have to explain the statement written in which context, what is the core of the statement, and then elaborate on each word. There are 3 key words in this statement. One is sociological imagination, second is history, and third is biography. And then you conclude whether the statement is still relevant or not. The statement, this present statement, is written in your NCERT. Now again, I cannot reiterate the need of reading your NCERTs again and again. 11th class NCERT, this is in the 2nd page. Reach your level in this manner that you are able to recollect from where the question has come. Right. So the statement underlines the core of sociology, where the aim is to unravel the connection between your personal problems and public issues. Now history, when you talk about history, history is of a society, of a country, इंडिविजुअल हिस्ट्री की बात नहीं करते ना, इंडिविजुअल की होती है बायोग्राफी. So a relationship between your public issues and personal issues. Sociological imagination is which helps us to understand the relationship between biography and history. So the core of this statement is to unravel the connection between your personal problems and your public issues. Just as each one of us has a biography, so does a discipline. Understanding the history of the discipline would help us understand the discipline itself. You cannot understand India just based on one individual person's biography. You have to see the broader history of our society, your ancient, medieval, modern history, which has shaped the present day India. The sociological imagination task is thus to understand history and biography. Sociological imagination statement works with the personal troubles of the milieu and the public issues of the social structures. The troubles which occur within the character of the individual as well as within the range of his environment in his immediate social life. Then you talk about history, how history shapes the individual's biography. For example, during war, a storeman becomes a soldier or a retirement, or when there is industrialization, a peasant becomes a worker. So you can make a connection between history, a public issue, and a biography. Now in NCERT, they have also given the example of housing. You can use that example as well to explain your answer. And in the end, again, a very balanced conclusion. Neither life of the individual nor the history of the society can be understood without understanding the both. In this context, you can also use a present day example. Check the relevance of the statement in present day life, and that is how you are going to conclude that answer. The last framework for today's class: change-oriented questions. How do you address change-oriented questions? Now, I told you earlier, and I told you that I'll tell you the two ways of writing an introduction. One is the definition and one is the broader context. This is a 10 mark, a very simple question. New forms of family in developed countries. Here, you can either start by a definition, which is given by Murdoch, or you can say that the new forms of family are emerging in developed countries because in the change in their social structure and processes, such as industrialization, modernization, urbanization. There have been changes in the traditional family structure. But here you have to first then state in 2 or more lines what is a traditional or a conventional understanding of family. Family as a unit of production and consumption. Family as a broader unit of 2 or 4 generations. So that you have to say, change आप तभी बता सकते हो ना जब आप पहले उनको बताओ कि कहाँ से change हो रहा है. आप डायरेक्टली नहीं बोल सकते ना कि अच्छा ये change हुआ है. कहाँ से? What is the standpoint? What is the basis? So you first explain in 1 or 2 lines what is the traditional and the conventional understanding of family. Now bear in mind that when it is asked in Indian context, then you use the term joint family. And when asked in developed countries concept, you write extended family. Extended family versus nuclear family. This is also the debate that you do for your family chapter, right? Nuclearization of families. So first, either you start by defining the concept, that is new forms of family. So family is important here. You will define family, or you set the broader framework for this question. That is, you say that the changes in the family are occurring because of changes in the social structure and processes. And for example, your industrialization, urbanization, you write that. Then you state what is the traditional definition or conventional understanding of family. And Then you write, now this is the transitioning line that I was talking about. The following are the new forms of family. Now I have specifically written in the developed countries. Please understand, don't leave out the question itself. Again and again, and this you have to learn as a skill while you're practicing your answers. Again and again, read the question so that you don't miss out on the essence of the question. What is the demand of the question? Keep always in mind your demand of the question. So again, you will write in the transitioning line. Examiner should know that you have understood the question. आप सिर्फ वो नहीं लिख रहे कि आपने बस न्यू फॉर्म्स ऑफ फैमिली अपने नोट्स में पढ़ा है तो आप लिख रहे हो, but you are relating it to the question. You are writing in the developed countries. You know, these small little changes, and that's why I say that it is a skill. These small little changes can make a huge difference. So you will write the following are the new forms of family in developed countries. Now here deliberately I have left them open-ended. And sometimes you as students also leave it open-ended. This is a big mistake. How would the examiner know that you know the meanings of these statements? Even in a 10 marker, 2 lines each is important. You're talking about the changes, new forms of family, nuclear family. Nuclear family, either you can give a statistic or you can say what is nuclear family, you know, a unit of two generations. Female-headed families. Now, female-headed household is something which is there in your Harlem Post, and you must remember that it is out of the understanding of how Black African societies stayed. From there, the studies have emerged. You know, in America, how did female-headed households emerge? The study on female-headed households emerged or was on basis of study of Black societies. That this was a part of Western African societies, and that is how they have adopted it. Or as a result of slave plantations. Now, this is something we do in greater detail in the final course, but here I'm just helping you understand that what is female-headed households. आप सिर्फ ये नहीं लिख सकते female-headed households are the households headed by females. You have to set up a certain context, and especially here, not Indian context. Answer is not in the Indian context. Bear in mind, it is in developed countries. So developed countries में ये literature कहाँ से आया? It is from study of African societies, slave plantations and poverty. Female-headed households are understood as a culture of poverty. So you have to mention this in case you wish to, but at least give a basis in terms of, at least explain it in terms of developed countries and not Indian society. Now this thing is very important. That's why I emphasized again and again on developed countries and not the Indian context. Then single parent families, you can get UN Women is the source. Go read this report, you will get the data on single parent families. Write that data. Reconstituted families, you can talk about the increasing divorce rate. Give an example of increasing divorce rate, either a study or an example, and talk about how there are reconstituted families. What are reconstituted families? Mine, yours, and ours. Right? Just either you can say who has given this concept and give a statistics to substantiate, or you can write it other ways. Homosexual families, how they are being recognized and appreciated or being legally recognized in today's developed countries. You can write any of the countries' name who have recognized this, or a percentage if you can get a source of, and then you write homosexual families are existing in developed countries. And then conclude with 2 lines. Now when I tell you that you have to adopt a positive approach, it doesn't mean that you say that these changes are positive. You have to adopt a balanced approach. Balanced approach means that family as an institution continues to exist, and therefore change and continuity is a part of the family as a social institution. The relevance of family as an institution continues to exist. Its only form has changed with the change in times, with the needs of time. Right? So you conclude with a balanced approach, how this is impacting or how it has helped in creating a change as well as continuity in family as a system, social institution. Right? So These are when you write about change oriented questions. Always, always. Now, this was a 10 marker. Had it been a 20 mark, how would you write? You will first explain or elaborate the traditional conventional family. Now, here you will take help of thinkers, or since it's a 20 marker, you can also use Morgan classification on evolution of the forms of family and talk about different forms of family. If you don't recollect Morgan, then you can explain about, authority based families or patriarchal families, matriarchal families. Basically, you have to tell them the forms of family have changed. If it is a 20 marker, you have to give a certain standpoint from where it is changing. And if it's a 10 marker, at least in a line or two, you have to talk about the standpoint from where it's changing. You have to tell them that, okay, the change has started from this to this. तो उसके लिए बताना पड़ेगा ना कहाँ से start हुआ. So, traditional, conventional understanding of family, and then you go on explaining the new forms of family. So, these were the 3 frameworks that I have discussed with you. Your comparative distinction differentiation based questions, your statement based questions, and change oriented questions. I have sorted out 5 more frameworks, and in case you have to add anything, in case you want me to add anything for the next class, you can either put this in the comment section, or you can put it in the Telegram conversation of Nice Iris, right? So, thank you so much for being part of this class. I hope you have learned, and we look forward to more such classes and more such interactions so that you can learn and score well in your mains examination. Mains examination is your key to success, and within that, optional plays a very important role. So, keep practicing, but here, word of caution, not everyday practice, but weekly practice. Train your mind for 3 hours. Train your mind in sociological perspective. Read your NCERTs again and again. So you will understand that, okay, what is sociology, right? So, and in your everyday life, whatever you read, try to link that to sociology. This is an everyday practice. It is a skill that you will acquire over a period of time. So don't say that, okay, we have written test for 1 week or 1 month, so we are done. It is a skill. It will take time to come, but you will surely learn and you will score good, right? Thank you so much, and see you in the next class.